Dear friends, currently it seems that many people feel kind of stuck in a kind of dead end or cul-de-sac because things don't seem to move forward to a brighter future. But I do not believe that. Rather, I believe that the monsters on the other side of the fence, those monsters are stuck and have run into a massive brick wall at the end of a one-way street that leads into a dead end. At this particular point in time, it looks like the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, a former BlackRock executive, a company which has invested heavily in the defense industry, is the worst of the warmongers. He, together with cokehead Zelensky, Macron, Starmer, and Carney from Canada, is trying very hard to make the U.S. join a war against Russia. He wants to use roughly 1 trillion euros of the German taxpayers and their children and grandchildren's money and spend it on what he ominously calls defense and infrastructure for defense. I believe, however, that this money, which he doesn't want to tell us what exactly he wants to spend it on or for, will be used to pay for all the bribes and crimes that serve to keep the so-called deep state's puppets in line. And even if a few hundred tanks are going to be built, Merz is now stuck in this dead-end street because Germans, with the exception of a few brainwashed dimwits, do not want to go to war and get killed as cannon fodder for the monsters. According to the polls, Merz's popularity is very low at roughly 30%. And it doesn't look any better for Macron or Starmer, or for that matter, Carney in Canada. In other words, they're all stuck, not us, and that's why some of us feel that nothing is going forward. But that is not the case. On the contrary, it is not just us anymore on this side of the fence, but also more and more people on the other side of the fence who understand that something is not right and who want to know what is going on. We'll have to wait and see what Trump stands for. Most importantly, is he, as Professor Jeffrey Sachs said, under the control, under the thumb of Netanyahu and his monsters, or does it only seem like he is? However, one thing is certain. We, and that is each and every one of us on this side of the fence, and all of us together, are invincible. And that's because the old, formerly wishful thinking phrase, imagine there's a war, but nobody wants to go there, has now become reality. Remember that other old anti-drug slogan, I believe it was coined by Nancy Reagan, just say no? Well, I suspect it was much harder back then for people with real drug problems to just say no than it is for us now to simply refuse to play along any longer. That is why I believe that Justice Brandeis of the U.S. Supreme Court's motto, sunlight is the best of disinfectants, is now moving us in the right direction, making sure that we expose the truth about the pandemic. Because we on this side of the fence know almost everything about it. We know all the real scientists, the doctors, the lawyers, the economists, etc., whom we can call upon as expert witnesses. It is the truth about the pandemic, and that's why they're trying to shut me and all of you up and keep me incarcerated for as long as possible. It is the truth about the pandemic that opens everyone's eyes, and that is the downfall of the monsters. The truth of the pandemic is a door opener to all the other lies about, for example, CO2, climate change, 9/11, the Ukraine war, Gaza, the Kennedy murders, etc., etc. The way I see my job as a well-trained and well-educated lawyer with lots of courtroom experience is this. With your help, I and you, that is all of us together, will take all of the evidence we have already collected through hundreds of interviews and which we have already given a trial run in our model grand jury proceeding and make the story of those crimes against humanity and the identity of the criminals who committed them visible. The other part of this job is to make sure that everyone understands that most of the perpetrators, if not all of them, most of the perpetrators of the crimes did not just make mistakes or bad judgments, but acted with intent to kill and destroy, and that we're dealing with people who lack basic human qualities, in particular, empathy. The war, which they have already lost, as explained, is not quite over yet, but we are in the process of ending it together with each other and for each other for humanity. Only up until then, I will heed a phrase or warning that a German poet, Heinrich Heine, wrote. Yes, one has to forgive his enemies, but not before they have been hanged. You don't have to take this literally, but the essence is true. Forgiveness can only come after the truth is known and justice is possible. I, for my part, will definitely not forget that we're dealing with monsters. And I will not, that's how I think after more than 20 months of imprisonment for nothing, I will not forgive any one of them. Besides, that's not my job. As a wise woman once told my wife Inka just after we had first met, you will choose the man with the sword. And the way I see it, when I remember how my father explained to me that the famous Roland of Bremen stands for justice and freedom, I probably am that man with the sword, figuratively speaking, of course. And I know that there cannot be peace or freedom without justice, and that is exactly true if we let these monsters get away with their crimes against humanity. Because they'll do it again as soon as they can, and that's because they've gone way, way too far to have even a remote chance of making it back across the fence to our side of the fence, to humanity's side of the fence. Sure, anything is possible, including that something mysteriously magical happens and the monsters simply disappear into a different timeline or dimension. And I sure wish this would happen, as it would save us a lot of cleanup trouble. But I'm not going to count on it. Rather, to use a saying that those of us who are religious might remember, God helps those who help themselves. And I believe it makes sense to do everything we can to make sure that the boomerangs of justice will not miss their targets. And just in case it is necessary to assist poetic justice or karma, both I and all of those international attorneys who have been preparing for this since the beginning of the pandemic are ready to hold all of the criminals and their corporations and other entities responsible for damages. And take everything they've stolen from us. And I mean absolutely everything they have. Justice can come very swiftly, overnight, if we do everything to pave the way. Even if some of us still have trouble believing this, each and every one of us on this side of the fence has special talents and abilities, and together we really are invincible. They know it. And I'm not forgetting that the other side does everything they can to appear omnipotent. But I also know that this is not true. Pretty much everything we see is psychological terrorism, fake propaganda. And I believe it's easy to see through it. For months and months now, their puppets have been talking about the fantastic new kid in town and how it's all-powerful, AI, artificial intelligence. But we don't need artificial intelligence because we have real intelligence. And that is real human intelligence, which combines our brain's ability to think rationally with our heart's ability to feel real emotion and our gut instincts, intuition. Do you remember the picture of the beam that sits on firm ground on one side, but whose other end is hovering over an abyss? There's this idiot standing on the end, on that end of the beam that hangs over the abyss and screams and yells at a group of people who are standing on the other end of the beam. I call him an idiot because he wouldn't be standing there if he wasn't an idiot. It's only the weight of the people whom he yells at that keeps the idiot from falling into the abyss. In that picture, one of the people decides he's had it and steps off the beam. And that's how simple it really is. The more people follow that man's example, and the faster they do it, the faster the idiot is gone, probably taking those with him who wait too long. Was it Gorbachev who said something to the effect that life punishes those who come too late? I know that that's how easy it is once enough of us see through their psychological terrorism and panic-mongering and make the right choice. That's how I see it with that part of me that is the man with the sword. The other part of me is my wife, Inka. She's a very quiet, gentle, and peaceful woman, and I'm the other part of her. That is how Inka and I complement each other, and that is how we, all of us, on this side of the fence, with all of our individual characteristics, talents, and abilities complement each other, making all of us a perfect combination of real humans. Again, maybe some of you feel that we're stuck in a dead end, but in reality, the monsters have reached the end of their line. A somewhat mysterious retro song by Lana Del Rey, Video Games, kind of captures this mysteriously confused but still not really pessimistic feeling. But as we know that this is exactly the time to stay calm and focused, Toto's song, Hold the Line, is also fitting. And ultimately, when we, hopefully very soon, reach that happy ending of real human life, songs like Sitting on the Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding, which I've probably already mentioned, or Glenn Campbell's and Harry Nilsson's song, Everybody's Talking, will be very fitting. Again, maybe some of you feel that we're stuck in a dead-end street, but in reality, the monsters have reached the end of their line. And as we will continue to hold the line and stay focused, we cannot miss the happy ending, and that is real human life instead of the materialistic, artificial ersatz life of a robot. Thank you. I'll see you soon.